Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 194. I am your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It's been a while. Yes, it has. At least for the live. I've still been throwing out the YouTube videos there. For those of you looking at me over there on YouTube, I'm streaming live on TikTok. I'm not over on Instagram today. Instagram is holding a burn, taking a hard look this evening. But we're streaming live on TikTok and on YouTube. And we haven't been live for some time now. You know, the carnival bug that passes through the island customarily around this February time, it caught me this year. I was unable to escape this year. I was caught. And the thing is, you know, the bug wasn't that bad in terms of feeling ill or anything like that. Not really, but it took the voice. Lyndon Max says, let's get factual. They want role models, but it wasn't an issue when no one was visiting. No, the black female who has an image they have a problem. If Nicki Minaj had visited, would they have a problem too? All right, Lyndon Mac. All right, I'm seeing your point. And something that I said during the video, my point that I made for my video, when I made the video, the point that I made was that many people are complaining about it, but when you look at the videos of them when they enter the school, they are greeted with cheers. They are greeted with many cheers and celebration and screaming and all of that. The reason that happens is because the children know them already. These are not strangers. Good night, Judd Muhammad. These are not strangers. The children know them already. And people are speaking about, okay, I'm saying the children know them already, which means the children are consuming the content outside of school. The children are taking them in online, on their online profiles, on their online platforms. And people are saying, I saw some people in the comments commenting and saying that the reality is some parents, they have better control over what their children view. So some children inside of the school would never have had interactions with these people. And here's the thing, if they never had interactions with them, then when they met them in school, the interaction would only be positive. I don't think that these influencers went into the school compound to cuss and talk about their usual bacchanal. I think when they went into the school compound, the content of what they spoke about would be generally around that kind of uplifting and stay in school and don't do drugs and all of that good stuff. So if the only time you met this person, the only time you interacted with this person would have been in the school compound, then I don't think you would have had a particularly negative interaction. My main point was that the worry many people have is kind of misplaced. You're worried about them when they enter the school compound to give a speech, but the real concern isn't a 15-minute speech by a speaker inside of the school compound. As someone, you're supposed to practice what you preach. Yes, that's true, Hollow Point. I don't deny that. As someone pointed out there, would they have complained about Nicki Minaj? Some schools invite Marshall Montano into the school compound. There are many people invited into school. Some schools invite politicians into the school compound, and some of those politicians, if you look at their life and what they do, yeah, there are many gaping holes in the morality in their life too. So I am not saying if I was the principal, that's not my first choice of person to invite. But also, I am aware that I may not know exactly the details surrounding that. Here's the thing. I remember I used to work with the police youth groups. Was it the police youth groups? They call it the youth clubs. And, you know, I'd go and, you know, you'd speak with different areas. And what I would notice in some of those youth clubs, look at who the police would invite. Sometimes some of the people the police invite may be characters that may not be of your taste, of your preferable taste, but if it's someone that can reach to the people, if it's someone that could reach to the children that they are trying to reach, it makes you wonder if it is that none of the better role models that you want are able to interact and reach to the children, and then this person who is in this kind of more shaky realm can reach to the children. What do you say? Good night, Francis Sylvester, the legend. Well, the topic at the moment would be the influencers going to school and the controversy that created. What would be your view of that? What would be our view of that? Is it as bad a thing as some people say? Is it something that should never be done? What do you think? Brenzo says 100% agree. We have to start thinking out I suppose you aren't finished with that. But yeah, like as I was saying, if I was the principal and I had the choice of influencers to invite, that may not have been my first choice of influencer. That's for me. Like, I mean, I'd have invited myself. I would have gone and spoken to the students, grand. But I could understand where it comes from. I could understand where it comes from in choosing them. Add you where, Christopher Rich? What are you speaking about? Add you where with what for what? What are you speaking about exactly? Start thinking out the box, and I agree. We do box in some of our thinking a bit. I was allowing her back to the school to share where she fall. Well, you have to request that, Christopher Rich. You have to request that. That's the thing. That's the thing. Positive radiation. That's what I was saying. I don't know where my view on it is necessarily because I didn't hear the speech she gave. You could invite a prisoner to a school to give a speech, and it may be a positive thing. It's according to what is the speech the prisoner gave. If a prisoner goes to the school and gives a speech that, yes, I'm glad for what I did and all of you should follow along with me, well, then that's bad news. But if a prisoner goes to the school and gives a speech about where they went wrong, that may be something that speaks much more strongly to children. I think the product of a school is a decent citizen who can contribute. That's true. I agree. Colimo says, oh, my brother, super mush. Oh, Colimo. Positive radiation says the ministry won't allow that. No. Oh, pleasant good morning, Jaron VC. Positive radiation, that's why school and fighting on the rise and bullying. Yeah. The school fighting and bullying, I put that as a general decrease in the discipline inside of schools. The discipline level in schools has dropped greatly. Anyone who has been around schools for the last 2 decades, and you could compare 20 years ago to now, the discipline level is atrocious. Francis Sylvester says, but most of these influencers have a continuous bad reputation they continue to carry. That's true. That is true. Many of them do have a bad reputation. But what would be the standard then? What would be the standard? How good of a reputation do you need? How good of a reputation? Who has the good enough reputation? The fact that she's popular among the children is a reflection of what we like as a country. And that was the point of my video, Kirvan. The video I made wasn't an encouragement or an endorsement of that. Sorry, that's the cough. Wasn't an encouragement or an endorsement of that invite, but the point I was making is that the fact that if they're already cheering for them inside of the gate, where we are making the focus is already wrong. We're already long gone. It's like the point I make about the Trinidad music also. It's like the point I make about the Trinidad music. Okay, the Trinidad music promotes violence. It's raw, it's bloody, it's violent, it's obscene. True, I agree. But should we ban that? Because I don't see the Trinidad music as being a causatory thing. The Trinidad music is a symptom. It's the art. The art is an expression of what the people live. So random slammers, it's an expression of the people's lives. So the art is expressing what they experience, and that's what you're seeing there. If you ban the art, that doesn't stop the experience. Similarly, If you ban those people from entering the school, that doesn't ban them from entering the children's phones. The children obviously know them already. If you are having an issue with this, if you're having this is kind of my problem. This is probably where I would look to try to, if I were to make a conclusive issue of this. The main issue I would like, if I was a parent, my main issue with this isn't just them being invited into schools. It would be if my child is a fan of them and can quote their videos word for word, which many children are. If you look at the statistics now, the length of time the average teenager, the average tween spends on the internet. On this TikTok here also, TikTok, the average time some young people spend on TikTok. That's where your focus should really be. If you are a parent who manages your child's online time, manages their social media presence, and then you heard one day Matara French entered the school and she gave a speech, and your child came home and said, "Mommy, today some skinny lady with a whole set of tattoos and a real gold chain come in school and she gave a speech." Oh really? What she gave a speech on? She tell us to stay in school and she gave us her life story and how she had to struggle and she work on a garbage truck and now she is successful in life. Oh, that's nice. That would be the story your child would know. How would your child have any idea about what they talk about online if they never saw it? The only thing they would experience is them in school. And I'm not saying that you can't have a question about who the school does invite. That's not the point I'm making. I'm saying that as a parent, generally speaking, if you are monitoring what your child consumes on social media, on the internet, who the school invites would be the most minor of issues in terms of inviting for a 15-minute conversation. I mean, it's not even like the school invited her to run the home economics class for a term or to run the etiquette class for a year. That's not it. It's what, a 15-minute speech? Judith says, in most instances, these experiences are as a result of those choices. Okay, maybe so, but the experiences has to do with the choices. Jahim says, not me now, my child will plant pak choy. In terms of what? Plant pak choy instead of. Francis Sylvester says, the stigma of your past will always have an effect on your future endeavors. I got to run, Nathan. No problem, Francis Sylvester. Thank you for jumping in for the little while there. And that is 100% correct. I said this in the YouTube version of the video I did on this, where that's just the reality of it. As much as I could feel love it, Jaron VC, love it, Jaron, love it, as you should. That's just the reality of this. As much as I feel for her, because it does seem a bit unfair when you think about it, that okay, you're not going to allow this person to live down their mistakes and all of that. Are they going to be condemned to the experiences they have had before in life? Well, the reality is that actions have consequences, and there are some things that regardless of what you do otherwise afterwards, you are not going to undo the consequences of those things. There are just some things like that. That's just the way it works. Unfortunately, that's just the way it works. Yeah, positive radiation.
I want to jump in and let me play devil's advocate, because the position I take on this matter is a real scenario. It's real individuals and we're living with real lives. Sometimes influencers may make mistakes, but how are we to treat with the mistakes going forward? Because the reality is the incident happened. This could have been a serious learning tool for the students and for the individual. This could have been a part of our healing process, as well as healing with the students now. So other young ladies would know, yeah, I could make this mistake, but this might be the outcome. She may be able to impact so many more lives now. But instead we use the sensationalism that we like, the bacchanal that we as a population like that we don't want to admit, and run with it. This was a serious learning opportunity missed, even from the standpoint of the Ministry of Education. Educate persons on how do you recover from some of these things, because there are adults that make similar mistakes, just like this said individual, and are liable for it. Do we believe in the restorative justice system?
I see Papa Bois saying all what's going on is normalizing wrong, bad is the new good. If by that you're meaning by them inviting that influencer, that's what they're trying to do, normalize wrong, I don't think that's necessarily true. The thing is, I don't necessarily disagree with you that in present time there seems to be a lot of normalizing of what we would consider wrong, but I don't think inviting someone like that, is her statement available? I don't think it's written available. I saw she did a live and I saw snippets of that. But yeah, I don't think inviting her is necessarily normalizing wrong. As I said, for me, it's all according to what the content of the speech was. That's the main thing. It's just according to what the content of the speech was. If she went there to cuss and spread bacchanal, then horrible, bad stuff. If she went there to say that stay in school and give a positive message, then especially if she could give a positive message in linking to her real life situation, her real life experience, linking to her what she has experienced, the uniqueness of her own life experience, linking to that and giving a positive message off from that. I don't see necessarily that as being a bad thing. People see the consequences for themselves.
When Bubbles went into a primary school,
I remember that.
Where was this level of outrage? And this is a primary school. And the little children could have sang every word of the song. And they was doing the dance to the song. Is it because she was a more established athlete? And she was an artist and she was well established. And her outfits are nice and neatly clad. And they have priestly cloths why nobody made an issue out of it?
That's part of the issue that I was seeing there. The thing is, I agree, Kevon, there was an outrage, but back then social media wasn't as big, so probably there wasn't as big of an outrage. Speech or no speech, she should not be there giving motivation speech during school as a cuss bud. Your reputation precedes you on social media. All right, so in that case, then all of the soca artists that regularly go into schools should not be allowed to enter schools. You see, I am not saying that I totally disagree with that, but I think people need to be honest about the standard they want to keep. If you want a standard that only people with morally upright characters can enter schools to speak, then you need to hold that across the board. Don't bend that for some people and bend it for some people. Don't bend it for some people only because they have more of the aesthetic of a ghetto rat. To put it that way, to put it bluntly, like we say in Trinidad, because they have the aesthetic of that. That's the way you do it. Because there are other people who cuss that go to school also. You understand what I mean? There are other people who cuss that enter schools to speak to them also. Should we ban anyone who cusses from entering into the school? Some of those police officers, some of those senior police officers that go into schools and speak to students, you ask anyone who knows them on a regular, interacting with them on the street, they're a regular cuss bud. She's not even accepting her mistakes. Collymore says, I don't know that to be true. That's what I was saying, Collymore. I don't know that to be true. I don't know what was the content of the speech. I don't know what was the content of her talk. If you were there and you saw that what she said was boast in her mistakes or boast in her actions or whatever, then you could say that. But I don't know that to be true. I do not know what was said. Papa Bois says, down to certain politics need to ban which what? I suppose you mean certain politicians need to be banned. And okay. Who cuss freely on social media as a brand? Yes, should be banned from schools. So only if you cuss on social media? Only on social media? Or if someone cusses in music? So if there's an artist who cusses in their music, should they be allowed in a school?
But if teachers who curse or principals who curse and the students are aware that they are curse birds, how should they be disbanded from the teaching service?
That's the point I'm making. That's the point I'm making. If you're setting a standard, your standard needs to be set across the board. And I have a sneaking suspicion. That some of the anger with her going into the school has to do with the aesthetic more than really and truly a danger she puts to the students. Like someone brought up Bubbles singing "It Bunning, It Bunning, It Bunning." I rate that as being so much worse than what she did. If she went into the school to perform her cuss-skull obscene acts, that's another issue. But if she went to the school to speak on another issue, you see, like, there are some theaters. Some of the theaters go into the school. Some of our theater actors go into the school. And some of those same theater actors, if you look at the performances and plays they put on, many of them are very vulgar. They have some vulgar themes. But yet they are the same ones who go and teach art inside of the schools too. RL says, but as another user well said here, some of those influencers donate money to these schools. That's true. Well, then you need to ban some of those school children. Christopher Rich, you had something to say, sir?
Yes, good night, sir. How are you?
I'm well.
Okay, nice audience as usual. Good topic that is so much all over the air, media. Putting your 2 cents out, giving people a chance to hear their thoughts about it. But, I think not trying to stray on your platform and your podcast and how you do thing. Take for example, right? Look how much years the case was going on in the country, right? Concerning the airport, right? That they're saying something.
Mm-hmm.
Look how much money and effort and different things was going into that. Just to hear now that they're not moving forward with it and whatever, right? And that was money that came out of taxpayers' thing. This woman born in a school, I don't know. I mean, the real people who supposed to be getting the bashing, if that is the case, is the people who somebody in authority put them up to that. Them didn't just wake up a day and go in at school, right? And the people who may have made a mistake or who influenced them or whoever should have been the person highly, in the limelight now. Put to say, well, sorry, they made a mistake, but really, some of the best person to tell a story is the people who play along in the story, and if that is the lifestyle they live, personally, them is really that is one of the right person to tell young people do I just do it. Remember, I don't know this person, I only seen this person on social media, right? So we running behind that, but we need Trinidadians are telling all you. If you watch the world and the wire and how everything going, you need to put seriousness in things that is happening in our country that is costing us, and that is just my take on it.
I understand what you're saying. Here's the thing. I see Colimo say, I personally don't want that girl around my child, and I totally agree. I don't even find that insulting. That's your prerogative, and probably other people might say the same thing around their child too. But there are many things to keep into mind here. Do you know which school she went to? I know. She went to Karapichaima West, I believe it was. Do you know that school? Are you familiar with that school? I am. That school was previously the senior sec. That school isn't known to be per se a prestige school. There aren't many popular people lining up to go to that school to go and speak to the children. So, okay, you say you may not want your child around her. But the thing is, the kind of person you might be who would be of that kind of standard, your child may not be going to that school in the first place. And it's like this. If you have the choice in reality between someone having no father, yeah, you mispiece the view, but not the whole thing, between someone having no father and then between someone having a father who is basically a deadbeat, he's just barely in and out there. what would your choice be? Would you say that, okay, that deadbeat father is not a good father, so let's not allow him to be around the child at all and give the child the experience of no father? Or would you give a half measure in that case, understanding that we aren't fighting between perfection, we aren't fighting between different measures of perfection here. We are making a battle of reality, battling with reality, just trying to make it a little more improved than it is. So sometimes, there's a saying, in pursuit of the perfect, we miss the good. And that's something you need to consider in this too. So if this influencer, who you find cusses a lot online, if she puts out effort, she started an extracurricular activity, she sponsored a class after school for some of the students, she's going there and attempting to mentor some of the girls who would have otherwise dropped out of school, she's going to attempt to mentor them, to try to tell them stick in there for a little longer to get the subjects. If she's doing that, but yet she cusses online, would you say that, okay, because she cusses online, let's ban her from the school, don't interact with any of these students because you cuss too much online? These students don't need anybody who cusses in their life. Instead, you leave them with no one. That's the choice. You leave them with no one because there isn't anyone else doing it. You leave them with no one instead. Is that the better choice?
Well, I mean, to be honest, your platform that you have is guy what created the light on you to have a voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, if it was you get an opportunity to go and speak, we all know what you stand for and what you say. Maybe she should have done a little thing on your platform by starting to talk to children from there a little bit and say, hey, youth, some of them are curse or they don't think no disrespectfully parent, but maybe that is our, others expose myself and make people laugh, or I just never vulgarity in how I say it.
Yeah. That's what I said that at the very beginning. A lot of this has to do with what she said there, and I don't know what she said there, so that's a part of that. Collymore says it have no good coming out of her at the moment, bro. And Collymore, if you're saying that, then I would say at this moment you are an emotional engager in this discussion, because you wouldn't even say that about Hitler himself. To say there's no good coming out of a human being, that's going down a really bad path. That's going down a really bad path, I think. And if you're going down that path, I'd say that you aren't judging the person with a logical and a fair mind. If you could watch a human being like that and say there's no good coming out of her, I think you aren't judging this fairly. That would be that. Papa Boy says it's best you get a vagrant and let them go tell the children to stay in school. Yeah, that might not be too bad of an idea. Listen, I would love if I could. I remember in music, there was a guy somewhere in Woodbrook that was really good at music, but he was a vagrant, and he would come and speak to some of the music classes that we did because he's really good at music, he enjoys it, and you get a different kind of perspective there. If you could get a vagrant to be lucid enough to give a stern, real discussion to children, I think that may be a good idea.
Nathan,
like some people, you need to think outside the box a little.
Nathan, I want to jump in on two bases. One is impact, and two, let me stop living a fake life. Let me be real out here. The lifestyle that she portrays, that she just is what a number of young ladies go after. You see it in the parties, you see it in the street feds that they're holding, you see the dress code, you see the exact same style. So we want to come off it, but we have children growing up right in our homes, operating just the same way, going on just the same road, and parents can't even speak to them about it. That's the reality. Secondly, we need to calculate impact. If Nathan goes to the school and make a statement, you're going to get a particular impact. But if you send somebody like her with her caliber and her standing, you're going to get a completely different impact. Simply because the younger minds now are generated towards sensationalism, hype, bacchanal. A number of them don't watch news anymore. A number of them cannot tell you when the difference between Republic Day and Assembly and some of these things. Because of how we have been caught for years. So we may say we want to send the best looking or the best influencer, but what is the impact we're going to have? Look at the impact this guy had at the Calypso Monarch, the prisoner. He had a greater impact than the actual winner of some of these competitions. Why? Because this story adds up. It's more real, it's authentic. It's not living behind mirrors. So let's be real as a people. If that's the direction the young people is going, we need to use them to change course. Because if we send the perfect individual, they're not going to follow that perfect way. Because we're not praising them, we're not going behind that.
Yeah, and that's what I keep saying. People are asking about her in terms of being a role model. And it's according to what was said. What was the aim? If they invited her and said, this is a role model that you should model your life after, that's one thing. But if they invited her and as just a popular online person and she came to say something, and what she said had to do with a positive message relating to how she lived her life, I am not sure. If you want to ban her in that case, I'll say that probably 90% of the people who go into schools to speak would be banned for similar reasons too. That's what I'm saying. Divya PKS says the cussing is not the issue. Plenty Tanties does cuss. It's a lifestyle that is a no-no. And I don't disagree necessarily that her lifestyle may be on the edge. I'm not sure how her lifestyle is. I don't follow the lady's whole life details to know what her lifestyle is like personally, to be very honest with you. I don't know. But I think that would be in a similar line. If you're talking lifestyle, if you want to go down the line of lifestyle, there are some teachers, listen, the lifestyle of some teachers, and the lifestyle sometimes isn't a secret. The students know that Miss James was with Mr. Harry, and then she was with Mr. Harry brother, and then like, okay, if you want a moral standard, then you'd have to keep that moral standard across the board. You can't want a moral standard, but only for one person you're taking the moral standard. I don't agree with that. It would seem a bit biased. It would seem a bit biased that the moral standard is for only this person. How is that so? How is that so? You allow soca artists in, you allow pop stars in, you allow politicians in. But this person who lives their life a little more openly, doing pretty much the same thing that many of the others do, somehow that's where the line is drawn. If you want to draw a line, the line cannot be drawn just there. That's the way I'd see it. If you want to draw a line, the line cannot just be drawn there. And that's the thing. I'm sure she wouldn't be invited to denominational schools. I'm sure the SDMS, the Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha, they have nothing to say on this issue because they have no worries about this. They're not going to invite her to their school. They have no concern about that. So, you understand what I'm saying? People who are paying attention, people who are invested in it, they have no real concern about that.
Look at it, right? You remember in news when Berkey, the guy from who they say is a gang leader, whatever, he went to the White House. You remember and it had a big thing on social media with that?
Yes.
You remember that?
I remember. To the president's house. And he was dressed in the big oh gosh, Detours, in the big Detours dress shirt. A yellow one, I believe, all pressed, but not tucked into his pants. That picture circled online. That picture circled online. He was an invited guest with one Marlene McDonald. But still, that was a different issue. That's still a whole different issue. She invited someone who is suspected of having underworld ties to an official ceremony inside of the president's residence. That was, whew. We don't want our young women to carry on similar to this lady. It wasn't a good decision. Here's the thing, Kevon. Here's the thing. I don't disagree with you. But the point I'm making when I'm saying the SDMS wouldn't worry about this is you have to compare what is
not what we wish for. You have to compare it to what is. What is the reality is in schools like Karapichaima West, many of the young ladies are already there. As we have pointed out already, the children were cheering for her because they already know her, they already experience her. If it is possible, as Positive Radiation said, we're looking at the impact here. Is the impact of inviting her to give a speech for 15 minutes in a school where the children already taking her obscene content online? Is it possible that inviting her there would have more of a positive outcome than more of a negative outcome? What would be the negative outcome of inviting her? When she's invited there, is it that the children are now going to look at her and say, "Ooh, this is someone I want to be like more now"? Well, these children are already looking at her online, so if they were thinking like that, they may already be thinking like that. Or is it possible that by inviting her there, some of the children may get a more nuanced view of who she is? They may see that, okay, she's this raucous personality online, but that's a personality that she acts. It's a persona. It's like an actress, and she puts on that persona for the online, and she's speaking sense in real and trying to relate to me something more true and balanced. Like Kevin says, I see her invitation as an endorsement. I don't necessarily see that as so. Schools invite religious people to speak of various religions, but the school wouldn't say they're endorsing a particular religion. It's a speaker. They're not inviting her to teach a course for a term or for a year. She's a speaker for a function. I'm not sure if she was a speaker or a performer. She was there for a function, for a limited time. Is that an endorsement, really? Divya says we should want more for children, but the bigotry of low expectation applies here. Yes, I do want more for children, but no, this is not the bigotry of low expectations here, because I do not expect low of people. I want more for them, but I'm living in reality. I don't see more lining up for them. If there was more lining up, and then I'm saying that, okay, no, we shouldn't invite a PhD scholar to speak to these children because these children are too dumb to understand a PhD scholar. Let's only invite an entertainer for them. That's the bigotry of low expectations. Saying that because this is the only person that is lining up there, and their outcome may be minorly positive, but at least something positive, that's not bigotry of low expectations. You're using that incorrectly there. Who else is lining up? Positive Radiation is lining back up there. Yeah, I don't see this as bigotry of low expectations at all. And I don't see her invitation as an endorsement. Everyone invited to speak in a school isn't endorsed by the school. It's like people made the example. Isn't it at all possible for a school to invite an ex-prisoner, a convict? Isn't that at all possible? I think the real question here was what was the content of the message that she put forward? That's the main question.
But look at it, right, Mr. Nathan? What you think about the behavior of the politicians for the last couple of years gone by, and how they behave and how they speak and how they get on in a house which is supposed to hold so much, for the country now, right? And look how they get on.
Mm-hmm.
But the disrespect and some of the things they say, and the world listening to that. I was unaware that people in Trinidad don't like cursing that much. I know getting to know that people in Trinidad don't like cursing, which
people in Trinidad don't like cursing around their children. That's a Trini thing. Many Trinis are cuss buds, but do not curse around the children. They're very serious about that. I see the view as, but are we so short on role models that we need her in the school? And I would ask that question myself. Are we? Is that the case? Where are the positive role models that are lined up for the school like that? Are the positive role models reaching out to the school? What are the positive role models doing?
Nathan, question, are the positive role models, quote unquote, hiding what they have in the closet? Because they could come out and give you all the positive talk and the niceties. And when, as we have seen recently, when the reality of the lifestyle begins to leak, it's a whole different ball game. And we have young person who are calling them up. It's now saying, but I have been lied to all these years.
So,
you know, saying,
so then a certain head of a political party can't go into any schools to speak anymore.
But the reality, and I think that is one of the problems lie. Because they always say we have a shortage of mentors, we have a shortage of influencers. But persons who say, you know what, I'm going to try. When they fall, we nail them to the cross, we bury them 45 feet below the earth, and then we operate now. Like, we short on influencers. We need to also realize that these persons are not perfect. They would fall at some point in time. Pastors fall, ministers fall. We are human. Let's be real and stop living in a fantasy world.
Like,
sometimes that's why we believe Trinidad is not a real place.
like I keep saying, I fully understand. I fully, totally understand as a parent, why you would be concerned about who is around your child. Children can be easily influenced. That's a fact. They're susceptible to being influenced. True. No denial in that from me. So I understand it. I'm not saying I don't understand why people would be concerned about that. My thing is the level of condemnation on it, I think, needs to be given, one, to the level of parents who are allowing their children to consume the online content in the first place, to get to know these people. That's where the condemnation should be, one. And two, it should be based on the content of what she said. These schools have carnival programs where they invite soca artists to come and wind down low. And then you're going to tell me that all of a sudden a lady who speaks about her life bacchanal, which happens in every village in Trinidad and Tobago, speaks about it in public, is a step too far? Like, I'm not saying that I don't agree there should be a moral standard for children, but where is that moral standard all of a sudden? Anika Nicole says, I think the anger and outrage is misdirected. Candy, you had something to say?
Exactly. I think so too. And I think a lot of, double standards with regards to what people find inappropriate and, acceptable is taking place, because I'm very sure some of these same parents look at these said influencers and, they are entertained, right? They are entertained the same way, and they can't, bash somebody for certain things, and then in a next tongue you talk about it's unacceptable and you don't want your children watching this and you don't want your children watching that. At the end of the day, you can't. Some parents, you can't really manage too much, or to 100% of the time you can't manage what your kids watch online unless you're really, really strict, and the internet is like off limits. Because at the end of the day, if they aren't looking at it at home, they're going to be looking at it when they go to school with their friends and so on. So I think a lot of double standards is really happening with regards to that situation. And have so many other things that, happening in schools right now that I think needs more attention than this small situation right here. I really think so.
The thing is, as I said earlier on, and I'm going to repeat it, I am sure the SDMS school board doesn't have this to worry about. And that was the issue that this isn't an endorsement saying this is a good invite, every school should invite people like this to come and speak. That's not what I'm saying here. But the whole reason, the reason that this person is known so well by the students, the reason this person was invited into the school, all of those reasons have to do with the fact that the parents aren't paying keen attention in the first place. These children, in a school where the parents are paying keen attention, that's not who they will invite into the school in the first place. That's just the reality. That's just the reality. So if you're worried about who they're inviting into the school, it's the same thing as I'm saying about being worried about the lyrics of Trinidad. Yes, the lyrics of Trinidad music is horrible. Yes. But you're worried at the wrong stage. You're supposed to be worried a couple of steps before that. The lifestyle that the youth live that make them feel a connection to this kind of lyrics. That's my point at it. It's the worries at the wrong stage. The worries at the wrong stage. It's easy to stop them from school. It's easy. It's easy to never allow her to go into a school again. But if that happens, would whatever the negative impact some people believe she has on children, would that impact evaporate? I don't think so. As I was saying, I think the school invite might actually be a slight positive balance on it all. Some people may get actually some positive out of that. That's at least the way I see it.
So Nathan, what we have to understand, and we have to keep daily and close to our heart, is that nobody knows the future of anything. And in this case, it involves kids. Nobody knows who's gonna be what, how the life going to curve, what will happen. If they gotta start off very low, even though they had high expectations, right? And we have to leave room for anything. That is why in life you don't try to bash anybody too much. That is how I see things, right? Because you don't know what anybody could earn and what is the true, what is the true meaning of their heart that they want to really bring out. And that is the only person could really see that is God. So I mean I might be the big religious person, but all the judging really supposed to be for the most high to really think onto people, right?
What you're saying there is true, but I think sometimes this is the struggle I find when I look at humankind, at mankind, at people. This is the struggle I treat people. Getting the balance. Not going too far in one direction and not going too far in the other direction. Yes, you're not supposed to condemn people based on things they do. But also, we have eyes, we have a brain, we could see things and make judgment calls on things. You could see somebody's actions in life. And I disagree with the idea that you could see someone's actions in life and you're supposed to be able to watch that, obviously know that these actions lead towards negative consequences, but we're all supposed to pretend like there's nothing as such. That's not true at the same time. Yes, certain actions are more likely to lead to negative outcomes. And that's what I was saying. It's according to what her speech entailed. I think she would be a prime example of someone who could give a speech teaching lessons like that. Okay, these were some of the actions I took that led to negative outcomes. I disagree with the idea that you're supposed to make it seem like, the negative outcomes are just happenstance of life. Bad things happen to people, life just happens. Life comes at you fast. Part of that is true, but part of that is action and consequence. And I think that's a very important lesson to teach children. Children need to understand that there's action and consequence. What you do now is going to have permanent consequence on your future life. There are some things you do at the age of 16 that even if you are sorry for it with tears at the age of 30, you cannot undo it. And at the age of 16, you need to be able to understand that. So we don't need to belittle that reality. You're not belittling the reality that there are bad actions and bad actions cause bad consequences. I think you could highlight that reality, but I think you could highlight that reality while still allowing people who experience some of those bad consequences to show that it's not only the people that only did the good actions and had the good consequences are able to show those lessons at the same time.
Nathan, I think you made sense, yes, but the reality of what you're saying is kind of contradictory.
Okay.
Because we will go through school and they will tell you be truthful, but the persons who you find them to be successful are those who are academically dishonest. So when you track it, you say the correct thing, yes, it sounds all good, and this is what I'm saying, sometimes we need to be real. Who are the persons who tend to get elected are usually the persons involved in corruption. The persons tend to pay the job is the persons who get the job through the back door. So why teach all of these good principles through the school? Yes, it's good, you must be truthful, you must be honest, and then by the time we do become adults, we realize, but it's not working for us. Eventually, we're going to see all these whole processes are like, and we're going to just go into the same corrupt lad system and do the same thing again.
Kevon?
Teach our children one thing at the school level, and then when we become adults, we do the total opposite, and then tell, nah, that's how we just work, so that normal. Nah, go and call the politician to get work for you. You know you ain't qualified in it. But you call it, nah, go and sleep with somebody, so once you sleep with him, you get the work. And if you call the name or anything, you can just bust the files, man. You have to keep you. So we started double standard from a very small level, and our children identify that.
That's true.
But we go in, we mother first and move with the money. So from small, they understand the double standard.
That's true. I'm coming back to what you said, just to address what Kevon said there. Kevon, I remembered at a point in my life where I started realizing that, and I was like, life is brutal like that. And that's the importance of parenting. Life is unfair that decisions you make before your brain is fully developed affect you for decades. That's so true. Decisions you make at 16 are what you'll have to live with as consequences in your 50s. That's unfair, but that's life, and that's the importance of parenting. And I find it so unfortunate that many people in the modern generation seem to not understand that key rule of parenting. That you don't, the whole idea of you being upset over what your parents are telling you is because you don't understand it yet. That's the whole point. And some people are acting like because young people are upset over advice, that means the advice is bad. No, they're upset because they aren't at the level to understand it yet. That's a whole other thing. But what you're saying there, positive radiation, I find you're right, but wrong at the same time. Here's why I'll say that. Yes, in our system, corrupt people reach the top very often. That's true. I don't deny that. But to make it seem like hard, honest work doesn't pull through in the long run is also not true. That's also not true. There are many people, most people, who work diligently, smartly, and with a conscientious bone, they generally succeed. That is the fact of it. That is the fact of it. The difficulties and unfairness in between where dishonest people succeed and all of that, that's just reality. That's just the reality that we have to contend with. And there's nothing we could do about that. There's nothing we could do about that. You could go and attempt to be dishonest like that and succeed and see how long the success would last. But generally, my experience is that that success doesn't last very long. Even if it lasts long in your lifetime, it doesn't last long for your children and for your legacy. So that's the way I would say that. But you could feel free to go and attempt to do it the dishonest way. But if you work through the difficult, hard way, that is granted, it is difficult. That's the reality that we live in. You work through that difficult way. I think there is generally success at the end of that. I don't think the schools can abandon its part in facilitating positive acculturation. The thing is, Kevon, that's the only real function of schools to me. Schools are not the best way to educate children. I think schools are one of the worst ways to educate children. The schools make you believe that you need 8 hours to educate children. In case any of you don't know, I run Mindful Education. We do learning pods, homeschooling style teaching, if you're interested in any of that for children from the ages of preschool, go straight up to late secondary CXC levels. Be sure to get in contact with me. But either way, schools make it seem like you need an 8-hour day to teach a child. 8 hours for 5 days for the week is what a child needs to be educated. That's not true. It was done that way in order to give the parents the time to go to work. It was done for the Industrial Revolution. And the whole idea of the public school was based on the Industrial Revolution to make good workers. Good workers is simplifying it, to make well-cultured people to fit into the industrial society. That's the fact of it. Now, some people take that as a wholly negative thing, but it's not a wholly negative thing. As a society, you want to educate the younger generation into being good members of your society. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. The thing is, who makes that decision on what the good members of society would be? That's where public education gets a little dicey. But curve on, that's the main purpose of public education. The main purpose of the public education is so that all the students in Trinidad and Tobago get a kind of common education so that we understand how to generally be good Trinis. That's the only real purpose. It's not there so that we know and learn the most. You could go on the internet and learn way faster than you learn in public education. It's there to get good, proper acculturation. So if it's failing at that, then maybe it's failing at its only good duty.
Nathan, question as a parent.
Yeah.
Do you think a good parent that know they built their child's life on good foundations would have a problem with their child being influenced by an individual like this? Do you think that they will be confident enough in the foundation that they put to know that their child has the intellectual ability to filter out the negative influences from this individual and go forward?
It's according to time. It's according to time. I remember as a youth, I used to say this in the days of dating and tracking gal and thing. He who spends the most time wins. And it's not always true, but it's partially true. And it's true for children too. The person spending the most time with your child is the person who is going to influence them. So that's the point I was making about this whole issue. 15 minutes this person spends, if you are growing your child well, you are training your child well, 15 minutes with Matara French isn't going to make your child into a demon. That's not going to happen. However, if your child is soaking and marinating in the culture of this kind of online bacchanal, when they go home, they sit down and take in a live for 3 hours, and then they go through yesterday live from the other person and read through the comments and see the bacchanal and catch the whole kankalang and see who not talking to who and see who cuss out who and see who da 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 and see who da 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 and da da da, and then that would have the influence. It's about time. It's about the length of time.
Okay, Nathan, right? As we say, morality is not something in our institution where we go to the Institute of Morality to get morality and things of our life, right? So it's not something that is, section out of our life then. It's something that is a part of everything that we do, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if you was to say, judge a particular part of the young lady, how she get on or what she do. She has her whole life basically on social media. And there is a lot of people in the world that put out their whole life or whatever that goes on with them on social media. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what if you was to say, what is the worst part of it that you see so far that they didn't like? Somebody might say the monkey, or they might say something that they see that she show. You understand what I'm saying? But Trinidad, we just have to understand that, as the guy positive said it, you have to know reality from unreality, and people need to spend a little more time and teach somebody the things that to look out for and the things that shouldn't make you, want to be now, because it's not positive, and let everything move forward. Because when Trinidad, I don't find Trinidad, honestly, is really moving forward. We are just being blessed by maybe God and people who maybe a little hard working, and it has some honesty and some praying souls in between and whatever. But you find Trinidad moving anywhere?
Yeah, I'll answer that. And I'll answer Anika Nicole's question. But do you think we are good Trinis? Has it been successful? It's according to what you would consider a good Trini. When you say good Trini, what do you mean by that? I think our public education as Kevon said there, part of the purpose of the public education is to integrate the society. And if you read back to what Dr. Eric Williams was saying when he made some of the statements that up till now some in the Hindu and East Indian community still hate Dr. Eric Williams for some of the statements he made around the education. If you go back and actually read, because there's an account of what he said, if you go back and actually read what he was talking about, the idea that Dr. Eric Williams had when he was forming our public education system in Trinidad and Tobago was that the main purpose was to help integrate the society. You see, the problem when you have a society formed from former slaves, from former slave owners, from European colonialists, from European immigrants, from East Indian indentured laborers, they all have differing views on life, and it becomes hard for the society to function as a unit. So that's one of the things that public education helps to do. You take the children from all of these different people, put them all together in the same school, and then the children come out with a more unified thinking. And in that sense, I'd say, Anika Nicole, I'd say Trinidad schooling has some of that. Some people exaggerate the disunity inside of Trinidad. The most unity I see in Trinidad generally is within the schools. You see interracial friend groups, you see interracial relationships. Very often when you see something that I always noted in the school days. You look in the school days, you see a friend group of 6 students, and they're interracial because they're put kind of random in a class. You're put kind of random to sit next to someone, and you just happen to become friends with them because people become friends with each other. And then they leave school, and all of a sudden, all of those interracial friend groups split up and they homogenize. All of the people kind of split back up into their own little cliques and stuff. So on the side of helping to integrate society, I'd say that yes, our public schools have done a kind of good job at that. Most trainees of a certain age, I can't speak for the super young, but most trainees 20 years and older have that kind of, as a trainee to the bone, and I feel like a trainee and a red, white and black. Most trainees have a good bit of that in them. To answer though the positive, well, not positive relation, Christopher question about if we're progressing, I would say I'd have to answer that in terms of as compared to what. Progressing means moving forward. If you're moving forward, you're always moving forward in terms of in relation or in comparison to something. So when people talk about if we're progressing as a country, I want to know progressing as compared to what? Because it's not saying that we have to compare ourselves to the United States or to Barbados or to Jamaica or to any other country necessarily, but we have to compare ourselves to understand what is possible in reality. Some people say things like, we're not progressing, we need to be able to solve this problem. Okay. Has any country on the face of earth ever solved that problem? Is it a problem that humans are capable of solving? So when you're asking about progressing, I would ask progressing as compared to what? When you look around in the world, what are you seeing progressing in the world so fast otherwise that it is leaving Trinidad and Tobago behind?
Well, the progression to me is that we should not try to get the problems that the other world, that the other countries having that we didn't have,
Mm-hmm.
and that is the thing I see in Trinidad, like that. We had problems. We have some problems here now that we don't know nothing about that. If you understand where I'm coming from, we're not supposed to even be in that. We are a small country with diversity. We had natural gas. We had oil. The world now is in a thing with how to say it, like. Oh God, what is the word, like how the world having problem? That is not the problem, and the ministers and them who tell us that this little country with all the oil and gas and all the economics and different things we have here, we're not supposed to be going through all the the high prices and all these things for this little country that we have here, where people say things expensive to bring, and you see the groceries and them opening up more and more branches, more and more. It's just a mindset that nobody is really looking into certain situation in this country.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing, Christopher Rich. Yeah, some of what you're saying there isn't totally true. Part of the problem that we have in Trinidad and Tobago, as approaching what you're talking about there, that Trinidad and Tobago shouldn't be in all the difficulties we have, is that we have gotten a taste for certain things. We don't have to import things. We don't have to, but we have a taste for it. The staples that we eat, mostly flour. We don't grow wheat in Trinidad. We don't grow wheat in the Caribbean. But we have a taste for flour. So we would always be at the mercy of the international flour market. That's just the reality. You're talking about we having natural resources, natural gas, oil, and all of that. True, we do have it. But the value of those natural resources can only be attained by selling it. If we keep all the natural gas we have and keep it inside of Trinidad and Tobago, there's limited value we could get for that. We don't have enough customers to sell all that natural gas to be profitable. By functioning on the global market is how we get the gains from the natural resources we have. But functioning on the global market also puts us on the negative sides, on the negative ends of globalization. So you're talking about some of the problems we have we shouldn't even have. And maybe, but it's like the statement, more money, more problems. If we want the more money, we're going to get the more problems. So the idea that we need to watch our children on social media, that wouldn't have been a problem in 1990 because there was no one with internet, no one with social media. But now that we do have social media and internet, it has become a problem. It's a new problem that we all of a sudden have gotten. It wasn't always a problem. And yes, I understand that, but you must understand though that the problem was created because we accessed one of those future further improvements. As you keep improving, as you keep stepping into the future, you keep gaining new things, you're going to get new problems with them.
And I want to jump in. You made a statement early that the average person over 20 has this I am a trainee type of philosophy. Unfortunately, I don't, and we won't know the reason why. But I think one of the problems with this whole scenario that we wasn't looking at clearly is most of the parents that were vocal about this scenario are parents who are involved in the lives of their children and their schooling, whether it be to attend PTA, to go to their homework, to check up on their books. But the average parent whose child is going down that road and living that lifestyle, or we see this individual as a large influencer, they don't really, that type of parent wouldn't really be much invested in their child's schooling or the child's education. Let's be real. So why not create programs now to see how best we can reach out to these parents, whether it be after school programs dedicated for them to help them along in the process so they can help their children. Because most of the persons who were vocal on this, their children is highly unlikely would be influenced by this said individual. Why? Because they know their parent is involved. If my parent don't care like the glam thing and what I need to do for identity, according to Maslow's hierarchy of need, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I remember that I have said that multiple times. Certain school boards, certain school denominations wouldn't have this as a worry. This is a worry because some parents aren't paying much attention to the children in the first place. That's the only reason it's a worry in the first place. Now, so I see some people talking about capitalism and whether our economy is capitalist or not. Our economy is not totally capitalist. Our economy has extremely strong socialism, social safety net side state. There are very strong ends to that. The fact that our state employs so many people in the public service means that our economy by default wouldn't be totally free market capitalist. The fact that our state owns and runs so many companies in the country means our economy isn't totally free market and capitalist. Now, the thing is, that's always the balancing act of the free market capitalism versus the social safety net side of it. If you lean more to the free market side, you're going to do away with more of your public housing, you're going to do away with most of your public servants and the ease of getting a job from the public sector, you're going to do away with URP and CP CPEP, you're going to do away with WASA keeping down the rates. Now it's going to be competitive private rates. You're going to do away with TNTech keeping down the electricity rates. Now it's going to be competitive private rates. That's all the things that's going to happen if you go fully into the free market. Fully into the free market also means that our health sector would no longer be basically free. You would have to pay for your health care. All of that is down that free market road. There are the gives and takes inside of that. Well, democratic socialism as designed by Eric Williams, to some extent. A man selling tomatoes out on the road would not be able to compete with the large markets. All economies tend towards oligopolies, I agree, thus driving the cost of food down. A man selling tomatoes out on the road would not be able to compete with the large markets. You see, I don't totally agree with that. There's a reality where size decreases your cost. Yes. So as you reach over a certain scale, your cost decreases, which allows you sell at scale, so you sell for cheaper. But also, when you grow, there's a difficulty in management also. That's why many of these large companies actually lose their profitability as they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And what actually happens, as Curvon says there, is they trend towards oligopolies. What actually happens is as they get big enough, it's not that they're so competitive they squeeze out the smaller man. They get big enough, they get involved in politics, and then they get the politicians to say that the smaller man needs to do XYZ ABC before he's able to start his company. So they make barriers to entry so high that then they become basically a monopoly in the market. It's not that the large companies are impossible to compete with. Many of those large companies, look at it this way: if there were not laws protecting the banks in this country, making it impossible that any fly-by-night Johnny could create a bank, there would have been more competitive, smaller banks inside of Trinidad and Tobago. I could assure you of that. If there were not laws forbidding people from just popping up a bank, there would have been more competitive, smaller banks inside Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah.
Look at something. The private owner has some companies, simple as Barbarin, for example. For the last 4 years with COVID started and whatever, right? These people raised the prices of the services, right? Even taxi drivers, right? And nobody pay ever really went up during that time up till now, right? And these people remain with a higher salary, a higher thing for the services, right? To live with the lighter whatever that they was living, because at the time they raised the thing because they say gas, and to go, you had to travel to go by the customers because with COVID, nobody wasn't coming out, right? And these prices remain, and now it's stick. The prices are them stick now, never to go down, only to go up now. And none of the citizens' salary or anything haven't raised. What do you think about that?
I think
That's something to it.
I think some of that happens. Some of the real trouble in that happens because we don't have a fully free market system. Here's the thing. If you were a plumber in the free market and the barber raised his prices, you know what you do as the plumber? Raise your prices too. But when you work for the government, you're a salaried worker for the government, and the private serviceman, whatever service he provides, raises his price. You have to get the whole government to raise salary to do that. That's very difficult. That's just the difficulty in our Trinidadian system. Many of the people in smaller companies, it's easier to get your salaries to fluctuate with the prices around. It's easier for that to happen. And the idea of how the free market is supposed to run, if a barber raises his prices and he raises his prices too high, another barber is going to pop up who is going to do it for cheaper. That's the nature of the free market. And you go to the cheaper one. The problem is very often in Trinidad and Tobago, we have people who like to choose the more expensive one and then complain about the more expensive price. That doesn't really make sense. The proprietor of goods has the right to adjust prices as they please. They will have to deal with the elasticity of the market. Yep, that's the beauty of the free market. But that's the problem in Trinidad and Tobago when we have bits of free market and chunks of government-run planned economy. That's the difficulty there. That's where the public servants always find themselves in difficult positions. Their salaries don't respond as easily to the rigors of the market. As prices go up, their salary doesn't go up as quickly. Do the rich in our society, in our country, even pay taxes? Yes. It's actually untrue when people say the rich don't pay taxes. The rich pay actually the most of the taxes in most countries. The reality is that they actually hide a lot more too. But they do pay the taxes. Many of them pay a lot of taxes. There are some, I have no doubt some of them may be paying none, but most of them pay most. All right. My voice, I think, did as much as it could do for tonight. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been the Mindful Life. We've been back after like a week and a bit out with a little bug in my throat, but we're back. Make sure to stay tuned. We will be back here hopefully tomorrow night for the next Mindful Live session. Tomorrow is Wednesday, so that's going to be Tobago Talk, middle of the week is Tobago Talk. So I will see you guys again tomorrow night for the next Mindful Live. I hope you are educated, informed. Yes, sir. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, folks. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.
What you do, right? Is when you have somebody talk, start bringing like some of them brochures with you. With some of the laws and certain amendments that is in our country, so you can read it along with some of the questions and things people ask. Because sometimes you give people the correct idea, but they want to hear what the law says or what
Correct. All right, man. Peace, folks. Yeah, man. Hold it down, people. Leaders.